Okay, so everybody, we are now, I can't believe it, at our penultimate session of the Youth-A-Thon, but there is still 2 amazing hours left of presentations and talks from young people from around the world. So let me introduce our second to last, but by no means any less excellent than our previous speakers. We have Olivia Precious Livingstone, who some of you might remember from earlier on, and she's now back to give us a session on IUU fishing and its impact on local fishing communities. So Olivia holds a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science from Cuttington University and has vast knowledge in land and marine pollution, marine conservation and other environmental topics. She's implemented several projects, including campaigns against plastic pollution and illegal sand mining. In 2019, Olivia represented Liberia at the Youth Initiators Conference in Egypt to present her Plastic to Paper campaign project, which aims to reduce plastic pollution. She's an alumnus of the Youth Advisory Council here at World Ocean Day and a current ambassador for the High Seas Alliance Youth Ambassador Programme. Olivia has volunteered with organisations such as Conservation International Liberia and Fauna and Flora International Liberia. She worked on the technical working group of the Blue Ocean Conference Liberia. Olivia currently works with the Environmental Justice Foundation Liberia on the Community for Fisheries project funded by the EU. And as a community mobiliser, she trains local fishermen in one of Liberia's biggest fishing communities, Robertsport, on how to use their smartphones to collect evidence of illegal, unreported and unregulated, or IUU fishing, whenever they go out at sea. So Olivia, thank you so much for joining us again today, and really looking forward to your session, so please do take it away.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Thanks to our last speaker for the wonderful presentation. And as you said, we all are motivated by young people all around the world who are stepping out to advocate and protect the marine resources that we all share. So I will be presenting on IUU fishing, illegal, unregulated and unreported fishing. I intend to have my session very interactive, which means that I'll be asking a lot of questions, and I'll also be screening videos and later on explaining the videos because I couldn't transcribe what was being said in the video due to some editing difficulties, but I hope that I can adequately explain the video after screening the videos. So let me share my screen. So okay, we have it down, right?
Yep, we can see it now, perfect.
All right, so I'll be presenting on illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing. And I'll focus mainly on Liberia because this is where I work and this is what I work on every day. And I will also talk a little bit on how young people can get involved in addressing the issue of IUU fishing. So this is Mr. Tapper, this is Jericho. These are two fishermen who live in Robertsport. They are very active. Mr. Tapper with the phone in his hand is the sea chief of Robertsport fishing community. And Jericho is the owner of the boat, the canoe that the both of them are sitting on. These two fishermen depend solely on fishing activities for their livelihood. They go out to sea every day and sometimes at night to catch fish in order to sell, to sustain their families and the rest of the community who depend on the fish resource to take care of themselves and also as sources of nutrition. So before I go further in my presentation, I want to do a short video so that we all can have an idea of IUU fishing and how it looks like at sea. Are we seeing the video?
Yep, it's all working.
So did everyone watch the video? You could just answer in the chat room. And I just want you to explain using one sentence what you saw in the video or what you understood from the video. So, okay, in that video, we saw local fishermen who went out to fishing and they saw the vessels in, all right, I think there's something. So we saw local fishermen who went out to sea, and while there, they saw a vessel. It's called the Sita 70. That happened here in Liberia. And what they were explaining in the video is that they normally go out to sea and they see these vessels. And whenever they throw their nets out, the vessels will come and destroy their nets and leave. Sometimes when they go and see the vessels in the act, they spray them with hot water. They spray the local fishermen with hot water because they don't want the fishermen to take their pictures, to do recordings, or to even come back to shore to report them. So they will spray the fishermen with hot water, and sometimes they will even chase them. And that is how many fishermen get missing at sea sometimes. So that is what we just witnessed in that video. For today's session, I want us to talk about IUU fishing, and I want us to also talk about the evidence. I've already showed you the video, and then we'll go into some examples of IUU fishing and why we need to monitor and combat IUU fishing. And together, we will find solutions on how it can be done, how every one of us can monitor and combat IUU fishing. And then I am hoping that we'll have discussions and questions and answers on IUU fishing so that we all can share our knowledge on IUU fishing. So what are the objectives? The objectives for this session, at the end of this session, I want us all to have an idea on what IUU fishing is. And I want us all to be able to identify the major stakeholders in the monitoring process who are responsible to monitor IUU fishing, who are responsible to prosecute IUU cases, and also to determine along with every one of you here the best practices that we all can develop in order to combat the issue, and also to identify major stakeholders again. So what is IUU? What is IUU fishing? So IUU fishing is now a global problem, and it threatens ocean ecosystems, sustainable fisheries, and, as I like to put it, local fishing communities. It is illegal. What makes it illegal? The fact that this fishing goes against local laws. For example, in Liberia, industrial vessels are not supposed to fish in the inshore exclusive zone, the IEC, which starts from 1 nautical mile and extends to 7 nautical miles. So any industrial vessel found fishing within the IEC is it will be considered as an illegal act because they're not supposed to be fishing in the IEC. It's just restricted for local fishermen in Liberia. You can also share in the chat how it is done in your country or what the law says in your country about inshore exclusive zone and where industrial vessels are allowed to fish in a lot. And we come to underreported. So we have fishing activities that are not reported. Some vessels will go out to sea, but they will not report the fact that they are out fishing. And sometimes they will catch certain tons of fish, like huge tons of fish, but they will only report certain percentages and keep the rest hidden because they want to make more profit or because they have caught certain species of fish that they are not supposed to be fishing. So for example, people that go to fishing for tuna, these kind of arrangements are between the government and the industrial vessels that they're only fishing for specific species, and when they go out to sea, they usually go against what was negotiated and they will start to fishing for something else. And in those cases, they do not report the extra catch that they got because they were not supposed to go fishing for it in the first place. So you will notice that the country cannot collect enough statistics to track what's happening at sea or the amount of tons being caught, the tons of fish being caught from the sea per year. And that is because vessels are not being honest with their reports on how many tons of fish they were able to catch at sea, or sometimes they do transshipment. So you will find out that they will catch certain species, but they will not bring it into the country. So they will stay at sea and just easily shipped it and easily transport it or send it over to another ship, and that ship leaves the country with the fish stock, and the country does not know that certain amount or certain tons of fish was caught or what was done with it. And then we also have underregulated. So, so some fishing vessels come into the country and they are not registered, and because they are not registered, they don't have a specific country flag. They just come in fishing and they just leave. Like they don't report to anybody what to catch. They sometimes engage into bad fishing practices, and these are the people, like I normally say, these are the people really involved in over harvesting because we don't know them, we don't see them often because IUU fishing is hardly monitored, especially in the deep or the high seas where local fishermen normally don't go. So they will just, or within the EEC, certain areas in the EEC, the economic zone, where local fishermen do not reach, or local guides do not reach. They will just go and catch their fish and leave without reporting or anything. So 1 out of 5 fish caught annually is from IUU fishing. These people, they are doing illegal fishing, they're not reporting it, and it's not being regulated, but they catch 1 out of 5 fish every year. So you can imagine the tons of fish that they catch and carry to their various homes or to their or sell to other people, and they're not reporting it, which means that it's just free, and this is bad and it shouldn't be happening. So what are examples of IUU fishing? As I was saying, fishing without a license for certain species. If you come to Liberia, the first thing you go to the National Fisheries and Aquaculture Authority is called NAFA for short. You go to NAFA and you negotiate with NAFA that you want to fishing for a certain species, and you are licensed to fishing for it. But you go out to sea and you see, let's say, turtle, because we're not supposed to to catch tortoise here in Liberia, and you see it and you start to bring them up on board, you start to fishing for them. You are not supposed to be doing that. And once you are caught doing that, it's illegal and you should be persecuted for it. We also have failing to report catches. As I was saying, you catch 60 tons of fish and you report only 30 tons. So you are underreporting the tons of fish that you caught, and you are cheating the government. Not only the government, but you are also cheating the entire population and the local citizens who depend on revenues generated from these kind of activities to take care of themselves and their families. Also keeping undersized fish, because when they go out to fish, they are told do not catch juvenile fish, and fish in its ready young stages, fishes that are not yet mature. And there are also species of fish that they are told to avoid because because these kind of fish, they only reproduce sporadically. So you will see that it will take 2, 3 years or 4 years before this fish can reproduce, and will only reproduce one or two. So they are told to stay away from those kind of species. But because sometimes of its high economic value or cultural value, you will see people still catching those kinds. And once they catch it, they will not report it to the government, and they will hide it and take it back with them. And it's another form of IUU fishing. So fishing in closed areas, for example, the High Seas Treaty is now calling for marine protected areas. Once we have marine protected areas here in other countries, or marine protected areas that are already existing, industrial vessels should not be allowed to fish in those areas because they are protected, and human activities in those areas are prohibited. But you notice that some vessels will still go there to fishing because the productivity of those areas will now be high, since activities there are low and the fish can live freely and reproduce. Those are the kind of areas that you see industrial vessels going a lot. So that's another form of IUU fishing. And also fishing in restricted areas, yeah, marine protected areas. And let me explain a bit about closed seasons. For example, in Liberia, the fishing is actively done from November to March. Between November, March, April, it is fishing activities are active here, and fishermen are on the sea, and that is the best time to buy any kind of fish you want to buy if you are in Liberia. But starting from um, May, June, like right now, from June to August, September, we declare it closed. We declare some of the waters closed from Robertsport, Marshall, and Buchanan. In those places, people are not allowed to fish it because we are giving the fish stocks time to replenish and reproduce. But sometimes you will see, and this is not, and for this one, is not only done by illegal industrial vessels, even local fishermen. Sometimes after it has been agreed by every one of them that they were not fishing during this period, some of them still go out to sea and try to fishing. So once you are caught doing this, it's illegal. And using the fishing gears, for example, the dynamite fishing, it is something that used to be so common in Liberia. Fishermen would just use the dynamite and bomb the fish, and you will see it destroys the water, it destroys the ecosystem, it destroys the fish species, it kills even the fries and everything. So once you are caught doing that kind of fishing here now in Liberia, it's considered illegal, and you will be persecuted for it. And as I keep saying, kindly share in the chat how it's like in your country, because presenting from my perspective on what I have experienced, what I know, and what I see being done here in Liberia. So those are just few examples of IUU fishing, and then we come to crimes associated with illegal fishing and why. So industrial vessels, as I like it, it's disguised as fishing vessels, but most of them have other illegal activities that are associated with. So they come under the flag of coming to fishing, and that's the umbrella, that's the image they present to the government and to the people. But then there are other things that they're doing beneath the major activities that we can see, and one is harvest. As I said, human rights violation. Industrial vessels now are becoming, people on those vessels are becoming wicked to the extent that they're spraying hot water on local fishermen because they don't want to be reported. Sometimes fishermen get lost at sea and will not find them. It has not been proven that they were killed or they were trafficked by industrial vessels, but studies are still going on in Liberia for places where fishermen got missing. Those places were the same places that industrial vessels were frequently at. So they are still doing research on if it's connected, but it violates human rights, and it transports trucks, arms, people, because especially for unregulated, those vessels are not licensed, those vessels are not registered, they do not carry the flag of a specific country. So you will see that they're involved with a lot of activities, and it's hard to track them down because they are not registered. So this is one reason why we need to combat and address the issue of IUU fishing, because of the many crimes associated with it. And we come to IUU and ghost care. So ghost care is the monofilament nets. It's really thin, almost invisible. And this care is not only used by industrial vessels, this care is also used by even local fishermen, because from my experience with them, when I asked, why do you like to use the ghost care? They usually say it's invisible. Like the example one fisherman gave me, he said, Olivia, you if you are not looking carefully, you could walk into a ghost care once it's late on the road. You could walk into it. So it's the same at sea. So fish, it's hard for fish for fish species to really see it and know it's a trap. So it's easier for them to just go into it, and they catch a lot when they use it. So that's why they like to use it. And it's the same for industrial vessels too. It helps them to carry home higher yields, higher catch, so they tend to use it a lot. And ghost gears, majority of the ghost gears, we have 640,000 tons of fishing gears are lost or abandoned at sea. So once they're abandoned at sea, they don't degrade easily, and they will still be there, and many other fish stock will be trapped into it and will die naturally, and that will also affect the marine environment. So the thing is that hotspot areas for IUU can lead to higher amounts of good gears, because if industrial vessels favor a specific spot for fishing, the gears they use to fishing will often be abandoned or left or lost at the sea. And sometimes when they are fishing, they will throw the nets, and when local fishermen go and see them in the act, they will want to run away, to just get out of there immediately. And sometimes they leave those nets in the water. So IUU fishing is also involved with ghost gear, and this threatens food security. It threatens sustainable fisheries, and IUU fishing is mostly done at night. Like that's when they come out, and that's one reason why gears get lost and gear conflict sometimes for especially for turtle. I like to use this example because for all right, so it's the turtle and the shark. When fishermen go out to sea and they catch the shark is usually it's calm in the net, and that's something that I have thought about a lot. It's calm, like it doesn't fight to get out of the net as compared to the turtle. Once they go out to sea and they catch the turtle, everybody will know that that net has caught a turtle, because it will flap and flap and flip it, and it will just keep going until it can set itself free. And in some cases, it's not possible. So it will just cut the net from the vessel, and it will go with the net back into the water. And once it manages to set itself free, that net will stay in the ocean abandoned. And that is more like care conflict and other activities of IUU fishing. So now we come to, why do we need to monitor and combat IUU fishing? It depletes fish stock, especially IUU fishing done in the inshore exclusive zone, the IEC. The inshore exclusive zone has been given to fishermen. This is where they go to find their livelihood. This is where they their lives depend on the IEC. So if industrial vessels come in the IEC because of its productivity, you will see that, excuse me, fish stock that local fishermen are supposed to be bringing home are the fish stocks that the industrial vessels will be taking with them. And it should not be that way, because industrial local vessels, sometimes they do not even use motorized canoes. The motorized canoes are the bigger sizes, and those ones are also called semi-industrial vessels, and they can go beyond the IECA. But once they're not using motorized canoes, they cannot go beyond the IECA. So if IUU fishing and industrial vessels come and deplete the fish stock within the IECA, you'll see that local fishermen will come home to their families empty-handed after a long night out at sea, because the industrial vessels have caught the schools of fish that they were supposed to catch. And you will also see that it violates the rights of local fishermen. So again, I want to show you another video of an interview that I did with local fishermen in Robertsport and a local fishmonger in Robertsport, and they were explaining how IUU fishing has violated their rights and has altered their sources of income. Hello, what's your name? Emasto, how are you? Are you a fisherman? Do you live in Robertsport? How often do you go on the water? All right, when you go on water, do you see the big vessels there? What do they do to you? So when they cut their nets, do you go to fishing? So when you don't go fishing, how do you provide for your family? So yeah, sometimes we go fishing that to our net. Yeah, baby, you know, the net for yesterday. This can be yourself. So that was the first video, and where you saw that is Robertsport. It's on the Lake Piso. That was where I conducted the interview. And the first fisherman was explaining to me that he goes out to sea every day. He fishes every day. And I asked him if he sees the vessels when he goes out, and he said, yes, I see them. And I also asked, what do they do to you? And he said they spray, like what I was saying, the hot water on them, or sometimes they cut their nets. So then I also asked him, I said, so when they cut your nets, what do you do? He said he doesn't go to fishing because his net has been destroyed. And sometimes it takes 4 to 5 days to fix the nets. So during that time, they don't go out to fishing. There's no means of providing for their families because they are there facing these nets that have been destroyed by illegal vessels. So how do they sustain themselves during those times when they are fixing the nets? What do they do to sustain themselves and their families? And the second The second fisherman in the video was expressing his dissatisfaction about IUU fishing, and he said they're giving them something we call hard time, they're disturbing them, and they keep cutting their nets. So sometimes these industrial vessels will come in the local waters, and they will see that local fishermen have thrown their nets to go and come back the next day for it, which is something that we're still creating awareness on, because we don't want it to be done that way. And then the industrial vessels will come and take those nets. Sometimes they just cut it, and sometimes they take the net with the fish in it and board it to on their vessels. So like, they are not only stealing from the water now, they are stealing also from the local fishermen. That's how serious it is here in Liberia. So it has now become more than a crime against the ocean, against fish. It's now a crime against local fishermen and the fishing communities that depend on the fish resources. So let me show you another video of a fishmonger and what she has to say about IUU fishing.
Before we used to eat very cheap in our sport, because at that time the big vessels then I used to disturb the it used to destroy the whole net. So when they bring a fish overseas, go buy our own press. But now we can buy fish our own press, because the big vessels then destroying our land, our brother land, and their net. And when they destroy the net, no way for us to get money from elsewhere to repair their net or So they have to sell the fish expensive to add all the money to repair their in their net.
So that was a local fishmonger from Robertsport, and she was saying that as a fishmonger, that is what she knows. That's what she depends on to take care of her family. Her husband is not a fisherman, so she buys fish from fishermen. In fact, she doesn't even have a husband, right? And then she's saying fish is now expensive than it used to be. And when they notice that fish is rather expensive, when local fishermen nets get destroyed at sea, so you see that fishermen will increase the prices of the fish because they want to be able to repair their nets, and at the same time sustain their families while repairing the nets. And also she said that because of the scarcity of certain fish species, so if industrial vessels go out to sea and target the same species that local fishermen are targeting, you see that the local fishermen will not be able to bring home the tons of fish that they usually bring home. So because of that, they will sell it at higher prices because they cut um because of the catch and how small it is. So now it's affecting her because she doesn't get fish as regularly as she used to. And that is the only way that she can take care of her family and everyone else who depends on her. So I thought it very important to screen those two videos so you see how IUU fishing is affecting the people living in the local fishing communities, because I know we have heard about it, we might have seen it on on news outlets, on television screens, on social media, but what we have not seen and what the world is not really showing the rest of the population is how IUU fishing affects local fishermen. And this is something I really want the world to see, because it is not just about the government, it's not about industrial vessels cheating governments, it's about the local people who really depend on the marine resources for their sustainability. So how can we combat IUU fishing? There are a lot of things we can do, but the first and most important one is for us to learn more about IUU, because there is no way we can advocate for something if we're not educated on what it is, on what the concept entails and everything. So I want everyone here to make it their business to read more about IUU fishing, to watch webinars like this one, attend webinars like this one, watch YouTube videos, listen to podcasts. There are a lot of people talking about IUU fishing. So there are a lot of information out there that you can learn more from. And I would appreciate it if every one of us can just learn more about IUU. That is the first step we can take. And the second one is to watch out for IUU fishing activities. That is, if you live in a fishing community like myself, or you work in the fishery sector, or you advocate for the ocean and marine conservation, this is something you could mention at events, at conferences. This is a topic you could always push in to ensure that people are talking about IUU and its impact on local communities, and that people know that these things are happening so that they can be able to watch out for it and report all suspected IUU activities. That is for us who work in the local fishing communities. Also, and to prosecute violators. This one is for government, it's for policymakers. We need to ensure that these industrial vessels do not go, they should be penalized for what they do to the local fishermen and fishmongers. So I will just talk a bit about my work as a community mobilizer on the Environmental Justice Foundation Communities for Fisheries project. This project is being funded by the European Union and it's being implemented by Environmental Justice Foundation. We work in 4 fishing communities in Liberia. One is Rapportport, the other is Marshall, the third is Grand Crew County and Buchanan City. So we work in those communities, and what we do, we train local fishermen on how to use the Collect app. So, as you can see in the videos, this is a local fisherman, and I'm training him on how to use the Collect app to collect evidence of IUU fishing whenever he goes out to fishing. So here is how the app works. What we do, we download the app and then we teach them on how to capture photos. Also, we have the system where each phone given out to local fishermen, or each phone that the app has been downloaded on, is connected to our central office in UK. So once you collect any evidence of IUU fishing, it goes directly to the central office. So that is why we always tell them it is important for you to get the location. It's also important for you to get a short video clip. That is, if it's possible. If it's possible for you to record the video, you record the short video, we'll appreciate it. And then you click submit and it goes directly to our database. So we have tried to make it as easy as possible so that any fisherman can use it, whether he's educated or not. It's really simple. Once you know how to operate a smartphone, it's something that you can operate. And we have been making progress with this. EJF brought 5 phones into the communities. We distributed those phones. And so far, we have about 50 fishermen now who have the Collect app on their smartphones, on their own smartphones. Like they came and volunteered and said, we want to be part of this. We want to take ownership of our livelihood. We want to help to protect our own resources. So please install the app on our phones. So we have installed the app, and there are more fishermen who are expressing interest, and we're still installing the Collect app, and they use the apps, they go out to sea, they take pictures, they collect evidence, and I'm very, very, very proud of them. Not because it's my job or anything, but because I have seen how these local fishermen are ready to take responsibility. They are ready to protect and safeguard their own livelihood. And this is something that I consider very commendable. So what kind of pictures do we ask them to take? If there's evidence of the net in the water, like this one, if you can take the picture of the vessel throwing a net in the water, or the vessel has already thrown the net, but then you see the line, we we ask them to take those kind of photos, and we also ask them to get the name of the vessel, the name and the number, because it makes it easier to track the vessels. Once you have the name, you have the number, and you have the evidence of them throwing the net in the sea. So these are the kind of pictures that we ask them to take, so that together we can help them to protect their livelihood and sustain themselves and their families. So thank you very much. This has it has been a wonderful time. I hope it has been the same for you. And as I said, I really want this to be interactive, because there are a lot of questions that people ask about the work I do, about IUU fishing. So okay, the initial plan was to give everyone 15 minutes to ask questions. So now you have even more than 15 minutes to ask your questions. And please ask these questions, and let's discuss IUU fishing. Thank you.
Looks like we don't have any questions in the chat yet, Olivia, but I don't mind having we can have a wee chat and discuss some further about IUU fishing, because I found that super interesting. I didn't know a lot about the topic before today, so thank you so much for sharing that. And I can see that there's other people in the chat who are saying similar, that they found it super interesting. I had a question around, so obviously when we're talking about IUU fishing, we partly have to talk about regulations, but then just because we have a regulation doesn't mean it's implemented properly. So could you maybe speak about a little about making sure that not only do we have the rules, but also that the rules are sort of enforced?
All right, thanks a lot. So yeah, as you said, sometimes we have the rules, sometimes we have the policies, but then they're not implemented, and sometimes some vessels just choose to go against those rules or policies. So what we need is for government authorities and other bodies responsible to be more vigilant in enforcing the rules and the policies, especially for industrial vessels, because these vessels come into your country and they register with you, which means that you need to monitor their activities. Once you monitor, and then you get to see what is being done. That's why we have coast guards here in Liberia. So you send the coast guards out at sea to monitor the activities of IUU fishing. And sometimes, like what we have been recommending, is that you even have a staff on board. So when they're going out at sea, you ensure that someone from your office or a coast guard goes with them. Like that, it's easier to monitor the catch. It's easier to monitor the activities and to know where they are fishing and where they're not fishing. And that is one great way I believe that we can enforce other laws and policies about IUU fishing.
Thank you so much for answering that. And I think that what really came through in your talk was that you were really speaking to the communities that are most impacted by IUU fishing, because of course it's not just the environment, it's also the people whose livelihoods depend on it. And I think that do you feel that that's something that's perhaps missed sometimes when we're talking about the environment?
Oh, all right. So yep, I focused mainly on the local communities. I'm just so passionate about those people. So for the environment, as I said, it depletes fish stock. And we have been, the entire world, we have been trying to see how we can replenish fish stock instead of depleting fish stock. So IUU fishing, when industrial vessels go out to fishing, they catch all types of fish, even the ones that are not yet mature. Sometimes they catch fish in their graphic stage, fish that are pregnant, right? So they will even catch those kinds, and it's not supposed to be done because those ones are supposed to stay there for regenerative purposes. But the vessels will catch everything and take them away, and that would deplete the fish resources because the younger ones that are supposed to grow to replace the ones that are being caught are also being caught along with the mature fish species. And then the one about fish who are breeding. So starting in the inshore exclusive zone, we have the mangroves ecosystems, and that is where most fish species go to breed. So when industrial vessels come down as low as within the IUU, they end up fishing in near mangroves because the productivity there is extremely high. So those are the places that they target, and those are breeding grounds. Those are lurching grounds. So fishing there will mean that you are definitely over harvesting and depleting the fish species because you are not supposed to be fishing in those places. And sometimes because they do selective fishing, which means that they come for only certain species of fish. And when they get those ones, the ones that they do not want, they throw it back into the ocean. That is something that we have seen. So once they throw it back into the ocean, it will stay in the ocean and decay, and that would affect the entire space within which the fish was thrown. That will affect the biological, the chemical, the physical properties of that particular water because the fish species there will be decaying, and a lot of things, a lot of processes will be occurring while the fish species decay. So those are some of the impacts. And then the ghost nets. I mentioned that industrial vessels normally use ghost nets to fishing, and the ghost nets stay in the sea. Most of them are lost, some are abandoned, and they stay there, and they all contribute to marine pollution. We have 640,000 tons of ghost nets in the sea right now. And majority of those ghost nets are left there by IUU vessels. So those are some of the impacts it has on the environment.
Thank you so much. I think it's really clear from all that you've said today that this isn't just um, a problem that affects one area. You know, it's an issue in terms of people's livelihoods, it's an issue in terms of the environment, it's an issue in terms of human rights. It's a really kind of multifaceted problem, and therefore the solutions for it have to consider all of those. So we do actually have a question around the app that you discussed. It's in the Q&A box if you'd also like to read it, but this person is saying, "Hello Olivia, nice presentation. My question is, as much as the reports from the fishermen are accurate with pictures of the big vessels, what does the government or the Environmental Justice Foundation do to stop the act of IUU on the high sea?"
So, what is the government environmental justice foundation? Okay, so this is what EJF does. This is what the communities for fisheries, this is what we do. We train local fishermen on how to use the Collect app. And when they go out to sea, they take pictures of the vessels that they see there. And the pictures, as I say, the phones are connected with our central office, and the pictures go directly to the central office. EJF, with support from the European Union now, send the pictures to the government of Liberia through its office responsible for fisheries, the National Fisheries and Aquaculture Authority. We send them the picture, we send them the videos if there are videos, and we send them the location because the app collects those three evidences. So we send it to them, and now we pressure them. I shouldn't say pressure. We encourage them to prosecute those vessels. So that's what we do. We collect evidence for them because they're saying that their coast guards are not many. They can't be everywhere at the same time. We say, okay, now we have fishermen who are willing to join the force, who are willing to monitor. So now we collect the evidence and we send it to them. and we encourage them to persecute the vessels. So that's what we have been doing. We have had about 6 cases, 4 are being persecuted right now as we speak. And the EU is doing amazingly well with the support, because we go in and we say we are Environmental Justice Foundation with support from the European Union, and we encourage you to persecute this vessel. And it sounds like, oh, these people are serious people. So yeah, we have been getting it done, and that's what we do at EGF. That's what we do with the information that local fishermen gave us.
I think it's brilliant you came here today, not only with sort of a problem that exists and told us about that, but also gave us a good reason to think actually people are doing something about this, and we're making steps, and there's not an age limit to doing that either. So I think that's so important. And kind of following on from that question, still speaking about the app, how important do you think that it is that these solutions are in the hands of the community, the people who are most impacted, in this case, the people who are fishers?
Can you please come again? I didn't get the question.
Of course. How important do you think it is that the solution to IUU fishing is put into the hands of the fishers, sort of like what your app does?
Because, as we say, they are the first victims, like they are directly impacted by what is being done, and it is their livelihood. So government wants to protect fishery sector because they raise revenue from there. But these fishermen, the ocean means more to them than money. Their lives are centered around the ocean. This is all they know. I mean, this is all they know. So once you have them protecting it, it gives them a sense of ownership. So they take responsibility for it. It's that, and the good thing is EJF is not paying local fishermen. We don't pay them to do what they do. So this means that they volunteer their services, which means that it's something that they want to do. And this has made the project sustainable, which means that even after the Communities for Fisheries project ends, local fishermen now know how to use the app. They still have their smartphones, and they will continue to collect evidence of IUU fishing, because if we're paying them, we would have been worried. All right, so after the 3 years in and we can no longer pay them, what will happen? But we're not paying them. These people, this is something that they want to do because they see firsthand what IUU fishing does to them. So I say that these people are the best people to safeguard their own livelihood, and the fact that they have taken so much responsibility and they have expressed so much interest means that it will be sustained after a long period of time, because the app is there, the smartphone is there, and they're always going out to sea.
Couldn't have said that any better. I think that, you know, it is so important that we're not just talking about let's help people, but like let's put the tools in their hands so that they can be the solution, because they, as you say, know the fishing the best, because they are the people who live it every day. And I think that that is a real cause for hope for us all to kind of take away from your session, that yes, this problem is actually perhaps a lot bigger than many people might have realised if it's something that they weren't aware of. But also there is amazing work like what you're doing being done to be able to address it in a really kind of community focused way that is genuinely empowering people to be able to take action both for the people and the planet. And I think that that's something that we can all take away as a good reason to be hopeful. So that is unfortunately all we've got time for today, but thank you so much, Olivia, for your presentation and the chat that we've had afterwards. And I hope that everybody else that's tuning in either today live or on YouTube and the recording enjoyed it and learned as much as I did too. So thank you, Olivia.